Yeah, so hello, everybody. The meeting today is about how stumbling blocks turn into opportunities. I forgot what I called it. But I want to, each meeting is different, have a different kind of way of facilitating the discussion. And sometimes I'll have slides and sometimes I'll just ask you questions. So today, I want to talk about an experience that I had when I was teaching in my class and how I think nothing is accidental, nothing is chance, so I always feel like whenever I'm thinking about a certain topic and then I have an experience that touches on that topic, then there's a reason for it. And so I wanted my students to practice the skill of listening for the logo hints and going through the way that you would analyze a session. And I brought myself as an example. And I thought, okay, I'm going to bring a simple example that people might experience, maybe not that exactly, but a mild kind of frustration or disappointment, without bringing an example that's too serious. And so I brought the example of my piano recital because I started taking piano lessons again. I took lessons when I was very small, and then I started again, and I'm taking lessons, and so my teacher had a recital, so he has all the children go up there one at a time, and then I went up there and I played, and it really didn't come out well. I mean, it's not like I'm just saying that, and and I expected more. I wanted it to be reasonable. It's not just that I wanted to go fantastic. Like I wanted at least to be, and in the middle, I was just shaking. I couldn't. My hands were shaking, and I couldn't even play. It's not just making mistakes. So but I thought about the whole idea of how, first of all, the students were very helpful, and they asked me various questions about, like, how do you generally handle your anxiety? How do you handle failure? Could there be something that you could learn from this, or could there be something positive about it anyway, even though you felt like it didn't go the way you wanted? What did they get out of it? What did everybody else get out of it? And all these questions. And I thought to myself, this really is an example of how you move from here to there, from a space where you are frustrated, where you're in pain or suffering or anything that you feel is going wrong in your life. And then how do you get to a place where you feel that life is treating you well, or not just what life is treating you, but that life is the way it's supposed to be, and you change that attitude from the self-absorbed focus to the focus on meaning. That's what we're always trying to do for our clients. And I think that's the way that you get past the obstacle to use it as a way forward, is when you say to yourself, you see it as a way forward. You see mistakes as a way to learn, and that's the best way to learn. It's the only way to learn. So you have to change your attitude for that, and you have to really and truly see it as something positive. But you can't change that attitude overnight in an immediate kind of way. Okay, and there are a lot of things about music. Speaking of, the topic is about music. There are a lot of things about music itself which are a metaphor for life. So the metaphor that I would like to suggest right now is, whether you're familiar with music theory or not, you don't have to know about music theory, but just I'll tell you very simply, and I'm sure you've heard this all the time, that when singers will sing a song, they start out with one key and then they move to another key, right? They're continuing the song, and now they're singing it or playing it again in a different key. But they don't do that from one key immediately to the next. If you really listen carefully, you'll notice that they have a bridge. They do something in between that allows them to move to the next key. Okay, and what is that bridge? What is the idea? What is the philosophy behind it? It really is that when you're in, let's say, the key of G, right? The G is very strong. You're playing the chord and you're playing notes around it, and and you just it echoes in your ear. You really hear that G note in a very strong way. Okay, so now you want to move to C. Okay, and you're gonna play C, and something doesn't sound right. It's kind of like you're not ready for it. You're not ready for it. Okay, and in order to be ready for it, you have to feel like you're moving towards it. And how do you feel like you're moving towards it? Is that the G changes its function. Instead of being the main note that you want to focus on, it becomes the note that leads you to the next key. And how does G lead you to C? It's when the G becomes the dominant seventh. Like, you don't have to know about music theory. I'm just saying that it becomes the dominant seventh. That means you're going to add another note to it, which will make the G sound completely different from the way it sounded before. It'll make a different impression on you. You'll feel now like that G is kind of bringing you closer to something else. Okay, so you'll notice, if you know anything about music, you play a G chord and then play C chord, and it's kind of nice. It moves from one to the next. But if you play with an F note in there in between, then it sounds even more like, oh, that's so nice. You can feel like it's moving somewhere. It's dynamic, right? And life is dynamic. Life has to feel like you're moving somewhere. You can't tell someone immediately, oh, don't suffer, don't be in pain, don't only be self-absorbed. Now you should just think about the meaning. You need something in between. And what makes it in between, like with the music, is that you don't ignore the G. You don't say that it doesn't matter anymore. You simply put it in a different position. And so the same thing, the suffering or the pain that you're feeling, you put it into a different position. You feel, you acknowledge it. You continue to acknowledge it, the trauma, the pain. You continue to say, yeah, this is really something difficult that I'm dealing with. But you add something in there which blends in and allows the suffering to fade more into the background, and to be more of a way forward to, that stumbling block will instead will be something that moves you forward, brings you to a new place. So, so when they were asking these kind of questions, it was like, wow, why wasn't I asking myself those questions before? Because I was so self-absorbed. All I was thinking about was, I'm disappointed. I failed. I didn't do it the way I wanted to. I wanted to impress my kids. I wanted to impress all the people who were there, and it didn't work out the way I wanted. That's all I could think about. Okay, because that was the pain part of it. But then when they asked me these other questions, it was, oh, wait a minute, maybe they did get something out of it anyway. Did anybody say anything to you? Yes, in fact, they did. They said, like, the feeling that you had was really nice. That, like, my teacher said, you had more feeling for the piano than the other people did, even though you made those mistakes. And so I realized, oh yeah, the people did get something out of it, and there was something that I could learn from it. And this is going to stimulate me to want to play differently in the future, to want to learn how to play more slowly, to want to learn how to, to be more patient. And then I learned afterwards also, there are things you can do before you perform to get rid of the anxiety. In fact, there's somebody who teaches a course who was saying that this applies to all walks of life, that when you want to get rid of the anxiety, instead of being very focused like you're looking in one spot, you kind of open up your eyes and you see, you allow your eyes to like take in the whole picture. And so it's really interesting. So like that really works to take down the anxiety. So things like that where you realize, oh, there's other things I could do. And so before I didn't even think about those other things I could do because I was too, into what I wanted and didn't go right, like what I expected from life, right? And so then when I added in that idea of those questions and that's what the logotherapist does, they ask you questions that life is asking you, that you really need to be asking yourself. And those questions are the extra F note, like the extra dominant seventh note. That's what those questions are. Those questions are giving you something to add in to the mix of your pain, so that now you feel like, hey, wait a minute, I'm moving somewhere. I can move closer to actually getting out of my perspective altogether, and I can shift my attitude, so that you eventually can get somewhere new. Whereas if you would try to shift your attitude, from here to there without anything in between, you wouldn't be able to do it. You wouldn't be ready for it. So I'm just presenting this to you as my experience.
Okay.
That I would like to hear from all of you, and this is going to be on our channel. So if you don't want to be there, then don't speak up, because like when I give a presentation and then people talk, then I can just do two parts. Like with this meeting, I'd really like to, kind of put the whole thing up there to see what ideas people have. So you could talk about your own experience, or just a minute, huh? You can talk about your own experience, or you could just talk about your, thoughts about it. And I'd like to hear if you have examples of your own, or, what kind of thoughts that stimulates for you. I'd like to hear.
I don't know, could you send this a connection to my email? Because it's easier to send it.
Yeah. I just didn't do it today because I was away. Okay. So
Are you able to do it now or not?
Oh, you mean right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you can just send it to my email, and then I can it's easier than on the phone.
Well, I can send it. I can do that for you,
Can
Batya.
you do that? Thank you. Thank you.
I want to make sure I have your email. That's all. I'm
Hard
looking
in the middle. Yeah.
Polakov?
Well, hold on one second. I'm
There, maybe I'll
yeah, okay. So
pause
what's
this.
your email?
Polakov, C-P-O-L.
Okay, P-O-I. Yeah, I got it. Polycom Gmail. Got it. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you got
Thank
it. On the way.
Good. Thank you. Now get on me.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
I'd like to say something about that, man.
Yeah.
Hannah, are you speaking or?
No, I think it's okay. Go ahead, Ronnie.
Okay, well, thank you, Batya. First of all, when you talked, three things came to my mind. So I want to make a distinction between three types of very similar ways of looking at things, and yet they're probably different. One is a classic reframe. Oh, something happened to you? Oh, well, maybe something good came out of it. Look at it this way, which is fine,
Yeah.
but it's easier to
Right.
understand. The second one is, oh, if it happened to you, it was meant to be, which is almost a spiritual, mystical way of looking at it.
Right.
But I think you're saying something different.
Yeah.
It's not the first or not the second. It's like something else is happening, that it's happening to make you, and I want to make the distinction. Is it right what I'm asking? And what is that third thing? How does it differentiate?
It's opening up your perspective so that you see more than you saw before. Okay, that there is more to see here that you're not seeing. And what opens you up to be able to see it is creating the conditions for seeing it. So that transition of the questions are creating conditions for seeing something new that you didn't see before.
Okay, so back into my words, it's not a reframe,
Right.
and it's not, oh, it was meant to be, but we're suddenly taking the lens and expanding it.
Yeah.
So our understanding is greater because we
Yes.
couldn't see it before, but it's not saying that it's good that it happened. That's a meant to be kind of idea. or okay, it was difficult, but let's see how it helped you, which is also different. This is a different perspective.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. So how do you, so to put that back into what I said about the transition, so how do you get to that expanded perspective? Slowly, like a little bit at a time, by asking a question that suddenly, wow, I never asked myself that question. What would I say about that? And then when you answer that question, then it starts looking different.
Yeah.
And
So
another question, and it starts looking different than it looked before.
right. So I have one comment, and then maybe someone else will speak.
Okay.
So it seems to me that what you're saying, in other words, is that we are enhancing the situation or the person with a different way of looking at things, but it could only be done retrospectively. So in the moment, we're all anxious,
Yeah.
unless we did a lot of so-called meditation and we're in the moment. But we only when we're the moment after, the hour after, the week after, the year after, we see things differently. And well, I think what you're saying is we can do this type of retrospective wisdom, but by asking the logotherapeutic question and then get to that place.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for phrasing that, because yeah, I think that is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so it's very interesting because it puts the logotherapeutic question in a bit of a different time. It's not in the moment, but it's in the moment plus 1, 2. And then you could see the bigger picture.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's related to how we need time to think about things, how you have to let ideas percolate, and then, and then suddenly things start coming together. Things start making more sense.
And that's what happens very often in psychotherapy when they're looking at things, but also because I've been working a lot in the area of conscious aging.
Yeah.
So when you get older, you can look at your experience differently than when you were younger. Now, this is
Yes.
very broad, very general. Why is it different when you get older? Because you get older, you suddenly have more experience, you have more knowledge, you have a different perspective. So we're doing that, but we're not doing it as an older person. We're doing that really near the moment by entering into a logotherapeutic discussion and reflection.
Right. And the person who's helping you, the logotherapist, has a different perspective, which they're not trying to get you to, oh, you should think the way I think, you should see things the way I see it. Like Frankel says, they're how does he say, they're an ophthalmologist, not an I forgot how he puts it. He says they're not, the logotherapist is not saying, oh, you should see the world the way I see it. They're helping you see something that's really there. And that's why they're like in the place of life. It's really the questions that life is asking you that the logotherapist is asking.
But I don't remember what Franco said about ophthalmologists, but I can tell you, I did an eye test recently, and they keep putting those in front of your eyes. How does it look now?
Yeah.
How does it look now? And
Yeah.
every time it's changing, right?
Yes.
And well, I thought I was seeing it the way it was. And suddenly, oh, I see a lot better. I think that's what Franco was trying to say, no?
Yeah. Okay, Marguerite.
Yeah, but so I just want to. The question was, how do we transition into the next moment? So I just want to give an example of what happened to me yesterday.
Okay.
So I had a argument with somebody, and I was very disturbed, and suddenly I decided I want to take a break. I do not want to get further into it, and I just said, let's end it out here. And then I asked myself, how will I do this? How could I have done it differently? What can I do? So today morning when I had to connect, I forgot what happened yesterday. It was like a blank slate, and I approached the situation in a very different way. And that allowed me to actually help the situation get better. The understanding, the disagreement what was there, that also got resolved. And what my understanding is that one is that we have to ask how can I handle this situation? How could I have handled it differently? Coming
Yes,
from a empty space,
right.
not carrying the baggage of what has happened, because then you can't approach it differently, or transition. You cannot transition it differently. So
Yeah,
that is how, from my experience, I feel this could be one of the ways
yeah.
to transition problems.
Right. So the logotherapist is not just broadening the person's perspective to see more things that they didn't see, but they're coming from a clean place, coming from a place where they're not bogged down by that, by that bias that you are, and the beliefs that you have, and that's why they can think of those questions. Right. And so I would say that that's similar to that extra note that you put in there, that puts that gives a different function to the original note, right? So you're giving you're shifting your perspective right away just by putting it in a different placing. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Bianca.
This is a fascinating conversation today. I just loved when you said that we do not ignore the obstacle, but that we actually engage the obstacle.
Yeah.
Because I think so much of our strength is just gained in that willingness to be willing to engage. And it's not so much, I think, a logotherapy perspective, but I was just, as you were sharing, I was thinking of the work of William Bridges when he talks about the transition model. And, he talks about sitting in a place of bondage, recognizing, that there's a wilderness that we move into and then into a promised land. I think that place of wilderness is many times a place where we have to say goodbye to the old, and we have to sit with that uncomfortable thing of we don't fully know what the next step or so is. But I think there's so much to discover just in that place as we sit and allow new perspectives to come. So thank you. I think what Ronnie shared as well today, just in the, is it a reframe? I kind of like that perspective as well. Just saying, that we're not just sweeping things under the carpet, but it takes us to a place of deeper meaning. I really like that.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, the idea that there's this wilderness that you're leaving behind. So there's a certain, people talk about surrendering to what is, but there's also a certain recognition that we are always moving, we're never just standing still. So we're in a state of kind of letting go of the past. And even a minute ago is something that's like it's past now, and we're but it's not that there's no connection between the past and the future. It's we have to let go of that in order to take the next step. I'm just getting that out of what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay. Batya? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to bring it in a different perspective.
Okay.
I'm just thinking of a case. I mean, I've changed the situation. Okay, the case is a couple. I'm giving us the husband would like to go to a movie,
Yeah.
and the wife feels that it's too much for her. She needs to rest.
Okay.
The husband feels when she doesn't want to do what he'd like, he feels that she doesn't care about him. And the
Okay.
wife will be difficult. You're not hearing what I need, and each one is not hearing the other. Now,
Right.
that is up here we have this obstacle, and how do we reframe? Where do we get the F when you've got two people involved?
Right. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for me is Elizabeth Lucas in her book on family using logotherapy, talks about having a conversation where one person says to the other, what was it about what I did that bothered you? And if they don't get it right, say, oh, I think you just don't care about me. That's what that shows me, and they say, no, that's not what it was about. Then they'll clarify, and make sure the other person understood, and then you go from there. Then they switch roles, right? So there are other techniques as well that are similar to that, where people are not understanding each other because they're not really listening. And so you kind of facilitate their being able to hear, what is it that bothered you and what would you like them to do differently in the future? So that they won't be kind of imagining things that are not true, right? I mean, part of the idea of seeing a broader perspective in relationships, the idea is like seeing the perspective of the other person, and not just going along with, well, they must see things the way I see it.
Well, I think they see it. The one understands the other one. I mean, you feel I don't care about you, but that is my need not going.
Well, what would you need me to do in order to show that that I do care, right? That's the other kind of question that relates to that.
That can do what I ask, what I wish, what I'd like to do. To once come towards me and do what I like.
Okay, but there's when we talk about shifting the attitude, we in a relationship, I think, maybe other people can help me here with this, but I think in a relationship, we want to shift the attitude to we both have to think about what's good for both of us. And put both of our needs into one basket, and so sometimes that will mean going to the movie, and sometimes it'll mean not going, or finding some other kind of solution that we haven't thought of, that neither of us has thought of, but instead of being my needs and your needs, it's the attitude shift is our needs, because the meaning and the right choice is always what's best for all involved. What's best for all. So what does that mean in the context of a relationship? What's best for all the people involved is both people being able to self-distance and stand back from themselves and say, what would be best for both of us? What am I willing to give up, sacrifice for the sake of the relationship that I care about? If I care about this relationship, what am I willing to sacrifice for it?
Okay, the problem, I suppose, the issue also is that the woman has gone to a course, and in the course, they say, White, the first thing you should do is, what are your needs, and stand on your needs.
Yeah, okay. Well, so then you have to you have to go back to the assumptions sometimes. Okay, like the assumptions, the premise has to be out in the open. Okay, and if that's the main motivating factor, then you can clearly see how that's causing problems. Okay, so then you have to I don't know, negotiate maybe and say, like, can we both be on the same page with this? Do we agree to both do things based on that premise or not? Maybe they don't both agree to work from that premise. I think it's always good. We talk about going back to the premise in theories in logotherapy or in anything else. What is the underlying premise? I think in a relationship also, you can have an underlying premise, and two people are in conflict because they don't realize that they're not working based on the same premise. So I think that needs to be dealt with first.
Okay, so in other words, that question is, how do you make a marriage work if one is on their own needs? Because each one's going to have a need and going to conflict.
Right. So is there something that's more important to you than your needs? Maybe is the relationship more important than your individual need?
Okay.
Because I think in any relationship, you know, when you say like somebody is arguing and is he willing to stop for the sake of the relationships? That means there's something about the relationship that's a value here. Or would it, you're right?
And there's a partner with
Could you say, Anita, could you say, it's hard for me to read when people write things in. Do you mind saying what you wrote?
Anita.
Yeah. So I've asked whether it's important in this circumstance to understand the history of why the woman is taking this strong stance and actually sought out to go for training.
Yes.
It seems as though perhaps the woman had either the experience or impression that what she wanted was never granted and sought out training in order to somehow empower herself to stand up and make her needs known.
Right.
And whether this is one of the first opportunities where she is now taking a stance in order to sort of, draw the line in the sand. And, so how in logotherapy, is this important to delve into that history, or do you just work with the as is right now?
Yeah, I mean, you go into the past if that's impacting the present and the future as well. So I think you're right that it is important to understand the background to that because that's where her motivation is coming from. Why are you insisting on this? Why are you, I guess it feels empowering for her to get these very exact instructions. This is what you have to do, to just stand up for yourself no matter what. Okay, so if that's another thing that needs to be understood, that the husband needs to understand. Okay, so to get back to our topic, I want to like bring it back. I want to bring it back to our topic, right? So
thank you, Anita.
Excuse me?
I just said thank you, Anita.
Yeah. So I think if we want to shift from one perspective to another, one kind of attitude to another, and we have to know kind of what's in between there. You have to also know where you want to get to. Like, like here you're talking about something where there isn't even any agreement about the ultimate goal. She has her ultimate goal and he has a different goal. So, so we're not talking even about how do we shift our perspective to align with that. It's more like, how do we align with each other's goals? That's the question here. It's really a different question. It's an important question, but it's not the same question that I'm dealing with. Yeah, Ronnie.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here and thinking for a second, Batya, that a lot of what we sometimes talk about here, I don't see the distinction between logotherapy and coaching and probably psychotherapy I don't know that much, but it seems very similar, but there are differences. And this is what I'm really interested in, because an example that you gave of yourself, I think there's what you call logo moment, but I think the logo moment is not just about finding out the perspective, which is very important, but I think everybody does that, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
I think where logotherapy is very strong, correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's looking not only for the meaning, but it's looking for the taking a stand, or what can you choosing things, and it's also about insight, it's about perspective, and saying, so what is your choice? And that is, I think a lot of times we forget that in logotherapy we're very similar to all other modalities, in my opinion, but the difference is not only in the meaning but also in the choice. Like, where can you take the stand here?
Well, I would say that there's no difference between the meaning and the choice, because the meaning comes through the choice. The meaning is something that's inherent to reality, that you realize that you're given an invitation by life to take up that invitation to, self-transcend. But the choice, the meaning is not going to be revealed until after you choose. Your choice is what reveals the meaning.
Oh, and that is a very important distinction. I want to give an example. You asked, like in my case, I had an example in my
Yeah.
life. For many years, I was in the area of business development and looking in biotech and high tech, and I was looking for myself and changing jobs and always either quitting or being fired. And I said, my God, what's going to be of me in my life? And then one day I realized somehow that I had to make another choice.
Mhm.
And the choice was to get out of the field. But I
Yes.
said, but what are you going to do? Why didn't you do it? All these. And then I spoke to a friend of mine who was a friend of mine at the time, and I was working in the area of business development. And I said, you know what? I think I'm making a choice. I think I didn't maybe use these words, but I want to help people make choices about their careers because I felt that I had a different perspective and I could help other people. And he
Mhm.
started really laughing. He said, "That's the funniest thing I ever heard." He says, "You're going to help people with a career. You can't even find your own career." But I say this because the dichotomy is so strong.
Mhm.
I was in a logo moment. I was in an insight moment. I was in a choice moment, and he wasn't.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm wondering if this is what do you think about this situation?
Yeah. It's a good example because um he wasn't able to see things the way you saw it. I mean, this is what happens very often when we try to get advice from people and they really don't understand where we're coming from. So, like relating to what Anita said before, like the logotherapist is always going to be the person who helps you to listen to your own conscience and to see what, how is life challenging you, but challenging you in a positive way. Um, and so other people are more like I said before, their premise is different. The premise um, like you in order to help someone else, like you need to know certain things and you need to be all settled and and you
Accomplished
can't
and
you
right,
can't have
yeah.
an opinion, otherwise you can't have an opinion.
Well, so what I was trying to say to him is,
Yeah.
here was the reframe I made. Because
Yeah.
of my unsuccessful chasing jobs for so many years, I
Mhm.
knew the pain of not being in the right place. And now I was moving into a space where I'd be able to see the perspective
Yes.
for people making the change. And he wasn't there. He was looking, listen, you haven't been successful doing it. You have
Mhm.
no background in this. Why do you think you can do such a stupid thing? And it was so stark for me because to
Yeah.
me, I'd made a choice, but he wasn't
Right.
able to see that.
Right, that's right. I mean, and he didn't see the value of your choice. So when Stephen Southwick told the veterans that were homeless and poor and couldn't do anything in their life, seemingly, he said, you're experts in knowing what it means to be homeless, so you can help other people who are homeless. It's like, so how can you use your expertise? So it's a very different perspective to say everything you've gone through in your life makes you an expert in that thing, and you became an expert in choosing what really spoke to you. Okay, that is something that you are able to give over because you did experience that yourself. Okay, so he's looking for success. He's defining success differently, but you understand, how you can be successful at making a choice under those conditions.
But only I could have done that because
That's right.
he could never do that for me.
That's exactly what I'm saying. You're the one who knows how to make a choice under those conditions, and that's what you've learned how to do. And that gets back to the idea that you need to fail in order to succeed. That there is no such thing. That's the only way that you learn.
But you know, I want to add it with respect. You know, there used to be in Silicon Valley a number of years ago, they put together what they called the failure conference. Instead of all these very, very successful people talking, I'm so successful. Well, how did you fail? It became a very in thing to do. But in
Okay.
my opinion, they were missing the boat
Uh-huh.
because it's very nice to talk about your failures, but there is that note in the middle that was it the F note or a G
Yeah,
note?
the F note. Yeah, if you're in the key of going from G to C.
Right. There's a
Yeah,
note in the middle that they
yeah,
skip over because they're looking at the results.
right.
It's the point that where you feel that I see it differently. Okay, and therefore you can make the change. When you just go at the bottom line or the face value, you don't see the note. The note
Yes,
is you have to experience that note.
yes.
And I think what logotherapy may do, I'm guessing here, is it allows you to see the broader perspective in which you can take your decisions based on how you perceive the meaning note. And only you can see it. Because, and the logotherapist may have no idea, by the way. Logotherapist may be just out there, but he's
Yeah.
giving you the tools, or she is giving the tools and the legitimacy to make that move. And maybe that's where things are very, very, very powerful.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
You see what I'm trying to say? I'm saying that we're doing something, it seems like everyone else is doing it, but we have a little bit of a difference in what we're doing. And that difference may be all the difference.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think we really have to learn how to explain it. I think maybe sometimes you can't explain it in words even, you know, maybe we've come a little closer by calling it a note, you know, like because that's is kind of more what it is.
By the way, what I brought up as far as the couple goes, I definitely do feel it's is applicable because we're stuck in one particular obstacle. We've got an obstacle here of each person's needs. And how can we change a note to get to the other place?
Right. So, you know, so changing the note in that instance is to like to understand why the woman is being so rigid about it, and is there can we bring something else in? You know, can we bring the relationship of the couple itself in as that extra note, you know, as that having value in and of itself, and not just that the person has value without taking away from her value as her needs being important. So how do you do that? Like, how do you do that in any relationship? How do you know, look at the needs of each person, but bring in the value of the relationship as a whole? So you have to think about where that does work, right? You have to think, maybe we have to think about healthy relationships where, you know, where the person does stand up for themselves, but it's not in a way that kind of cuts her off from the other person. You know, kind of like, okay, we're in competition here because I have my needs and you have your needs, and they conflict, and right, and then there's no kind of there's no commonality, there's no common ground.
G, like you'd have, make it a bit more broader, just say your G and say H notes and try to bring that, you're being using that together, talking to each other and try to bring that towards a C, F bringing over.
Yeah, but you know, but talking together means that you know, how can this work for both? Like, let's say he likes to go to, you know, what would a healthy couple do? Okay, so he likes to go to movies and she doesn't want to go because she feels like it's going against her need. Why is it going against her needs? Is it because she's she's very tired right now? Like in a healthy relationship, so both people would stand outside of themselves, self-detachment, and look in and say, how is it for me? How's it for you? What are the reasons why your concerns are important? Like her concerns are important because she's very tired and she's gonna just be depleted and, and it hurt her whole day the next day. And for him, he feels like he needs to do something that will have fun together. But they're not gonna have fun together if she's like that, and it's like he can come to appreciate her need that maybe today is not the best day for it. And if she appreciates his need and how this is good for the relationship for them to do something together, then maybe they'll find a different time to do it, but if each one is just always saying no, then that means that there is nothing else besides me. Right? There's no other consideration, right?
Right. Okay, but through questions, as you say, through logotherapy, have a list of logotherapeutic questions, Socratic questions, and try and get them to show.
Yeah, but you don't have to have a list of questions and then, oh no, where's my list? And I have to make sure the questions are, you have to really be listening well enough to know, okay, what are they really saying here? What is this really about for them? Right? Like with the woman, for example, she doesn't want to go out. What is it really about for her? I don't know, but you have to dig a little bit to find out. Is it something that she's never going to agree to? Is it something that just goes against her? She doesn't believe in going to movies, or is it just that she's tired? Is she tired all the time? Well, if she's tired all the time, then got to find out why that's happening, right? So as soon as you start digging into the why, what's the reason behind the feelings, then you'll get to the meaning. And as I told Ronnie before, that the meaning comes through your choice, right?
Choice,
So
yeah.
Yeah,
I'd like to, I'm remembering the classic example that Frankel talks about, that elderly man in his 90s whose wife died and he was in
Yeah.
deep depression.
Yes.
And that Frankel at the beginning didn't succeed in talking to him until he made the very, very important question. So had it been the other way around,
Yeah.
how would your wife have felt if you had passed away? And then he saw, well, she would have been very, very depressed.
Yes.
So the next question was, well, can you see it then in a different, he didn't use the word perspective, but I'm using perspective, that
Yes.
maybe your being alive has saved her the suffering of having
Yes.
to lose you.
Yeah.
And that was a mind-boggling change for the man. And he
Mhm.
went back and he changed his life. Now, what do you think of that? How do you frame, how do you talk, what is that question that Frankel gave?
Well, that's a question that opens you up to an alternative way of looking at things, because it's the classic question of what if it would have been this way instead. So logotherapy uses that a lot. What if it would have been different? Then you already start thinking out of the box, and you say, if it would have been different, then how would I have felt then? Okay, that's what his answer was. Now I can tell you that's how I would have felt if it would have been the other way.
Which led the elderly man to making a change in his life.
Yeah, that's right.
He ended up choosing life.
Yeah. So a lot of questions in logotherapy are like that, where you say, what would have happened if it would have been this way instead, and how would you feel if it was that other way? Because we only look at things according to the way we see it now. It's hard to think of what it would have been like if it had been different. Right. What if you had someone else's life circumstances? Would you can look at someone else and think, they're better off than you. And then you start thinking, would I really have wanted to be them? Start thinking about it, and then you realize no.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure I want to share this. Maybe it's too heavy, but I'm thinking about my father in the Holocaust.
Yeah.
And he lost his whole family, except for one sister, being shot by the Nazis.
Yeah.
and he survived.
Yeah.
And later on, later in life, it's a long story, you know the story, but he asked himself all throughout his life, he didn't share it with us until one day. He's saying, why did I remain alive while all those were killed?
Yeah.
I wasn't any better than them. This
Yeah.
is a question you can't answer. And it's
Yeah.
a question that I think if anyone does answer it is blasphemy.
Yeah.
But somewhere in the question, the answer may be embedded if there is such a thing. And he said, well, to tell the story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's not logical. It doesn't mean it's good that it happened. It wasn't meant to be. It depends how you look at it. But the fact that you could make those connection between
Mm-hmm.
two existentially horrendous things shows me something of the same nature as we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with me?
Yeah, I mean, when Frankel said he was in the camps, you know, when he said, don't ask what you expect from life, ask what life expects from you. So, you know, so you would think that, like, how can life expect anything from you? It's not exactly the same as what you're talking about, but, you know, but like, why did I survive? Meaning, you know, how can you say, life expects me to just go on normally and live my life, and knowing that those people, you know, those people were killed and I wasn't, and feeling like, I don't feel right about that. And the answer is, that you know, that you are here for a reason, even if you can't answer the question. Like, I think that the idea that there's ultimate meaning, which is beyond our grasp, and at the same time, there's a meaning of the moment, which is telling you what you need to choose right now. So that's what our life is about. You know, life, that's the mystery of knowing there's a connection between ultimate meaning, even though we don't understand it, and the meaning of the moment that we can choose. So, you know, he can choose to tell the story, even though he doesn't understand why he survived and the others didn't. He can still choose to tell the story, and there's still something connected, so a connection between choosing to tell the story and an ultimate meaning that's beyond him, even though he doesn't know what the connection is.
Right. And I would say that we as logotherapists or any type of external people can never give a person an answer to that question. We can
Right.
only broaden perspective and ask, do you see an answer? Do you see a meaning? And they
Yeah.
may not, or may not now, maybe later, or maybe
Right.
never.
Right. But that's why the emphasis in logotherapy is on the meaning of the moment, because you can't find an answer to that. But I think it's still important to know that there's a connection between the two things, because it means you're connected to something ultimate and eternal, and, you know, like, you can put it into mystical terminology. You're connected to something that's beyond this world, even though you don't know how. You don't have to know how. You know, that's the part where Frankl says, basic trust in being. Like, you don't have to know how in order to just have this basic trust that you're here. You know, your existence means something, and the way that you find what your existence means is through those choices every moment. So that choice that he made to tell the story, he doesn't have to say, that's why it had to happen, that's why I had to survive, so, you know, because I was supposed to tell the story. It's that I survived, therefore this is what I need to do with that fact, with that reality, the
It's
reality
not a
of
cause
life.
and effect.
It's not a cause and
effect.
effect. It's that now this is what's being placed in front of me. This is what I need to do with it. Right? That belief that there's something to do with everything that's put on your plate.
That, what's that? Is it a belief? Now here was the old question we have. Is it a
Yeah,
belief?
well, Frankel says that you can't prove that meaning exists, so you have to say it's a belief because you can't prove it. Okay, so yeah.
But logotherapy, I think, Batya,
Yeah.
the logotherapy can also be for atheists, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah, but there's still a belief, You don't have to translate the belief as a religious belief. There's still a belief that there's meaning, even if someone is an atheist.
Yeah, and even if someone doesn't believe that there is anything like a God, but he or she believes, wait a second, the fact of the matter is they're not here anymore and I am.
Right.
That's a fact.
Yes.
So what do I do about that fact?
So
And do I have a choice? Do I have a choice around that fact? Those are questions that are not necessarily God related. They could
Right.
be, but they could not be.
No, it's true. I agree. So, so your father made the choice to tell you at some point, and then, to tell the world, and he felt that was an important thing to do with what happened to him. Right.
May I just ask, I think the word belief here is associated with religion, and I don't think the word belief is solely associated with religion.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I think what I'm understanding is that one can have conscience,
Mm-hmm.
and you can believe something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for instance, in everyday life, something happens and, two events happen, you draw a conclusion between the two, and that sets you up to believe a particular thing. One gives effect to the other.
Mm-hmm.
That has nothing to do with religion, but we still call that a belief.
Right.
So what I'm hearing you saying, Batya, is that logotherapy asks of us, or at least some of the underpinning of logotherapy says that we should have the understanding that there is always meaning in life, i.e.
Yeah.
a belief that there's always meaning in life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what Frankl calls the basic trust in being.
Yeah.
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 In which case he was very different than many of the existential philosophers.
Yes, that's right. That's right. He was different. If we don't know that by now, then, then we should. Yeah.
But I think the word belief, as Anita was saying, I think we need another word, because the word belief, we're using it in different ways, and it's not a. It's a. I don't have a better word. I don't know the word.
This is always shows how language is limited, because I was reading recently this book, The Matter with Things, by Ian McGilchrist. This is really fantastic book. He was talking about the word logos, and he said that Heraclitus, am I saying that right?
Yeah, Heraclitus.
Talked about the nous and the something having to do with I wish I had the quote here, but it's a spiritual meaning. It's like it's something that's not about logic, and I was thinking, I used to think that Frankl created a new meaning of the word, maybe because the rest of the world, as soon as they hear logos, they think logic, and and it sounds similar. And Frankl says, no, conscience is not rational. It's not irrational either, but it's something else. It's something that we sense in our through our deepest being, our essence. And then I realized when I read that he was going back to the original meaning. He was going back to the earlier meaning of the word. And and when we see Frankl using the word conscience and different from Freud, and so words are always going to get in the way, and that's why we need like Ian McGilchrist talks about in this book, that's why we need the right hemisphere of the brain that thinks more in metaphors and poetry and, and realizes the limitations of language. So
what is Ian saying the word logos means?
So I have to find it.
Oh,
Maybe it'll take a minute and because I wrote it down. Just have to remember which.
I think perhaps words that might be useful if you need to replace the word belief might be convinced or a knowing that there is meaning.
Okay.
If the word belief gets in the way.
Maybe.
conviction,
Maybe, but but like I said, I think that sometimes to a certain extent we have to use, like, that's why there is such a thing as metaphors and poetry and music, because of the limitations of language. That's why we need those things. Yeah, 1 second. Let me just try to find this. Oh, I think I know where it is. Just a minute. Just give me a minute. Okay, I'm going to read from what I wrote here from my book. Okay, Frankl called his theory logotherapy from the Greek word logos, referring to meaning. Hence, logotherapy is healing through finding meaning and purpose. Logos has had a variety of connotations historically, such as reason, the word that created the universe, or even God. Frankl apparently adopted the earlier usage adopted by Heraclitus, alluding to, now here's the quote, the common principle that makes complexity, beauty, and meaningful order arise in a place of chaos. I'll read that again, so it's hard to tell just listening. The common principle that makes complexity, beauty, and meaningful order arise in place of chaos. So in logotherapy, logos refers to meaning and spirit. Spirit not in the religious sense, but in the sense of what it means to be human. Okay.
very nice.
So, I think you need to, you like Frankl told somebody once who, he said reason, he quoted, there are things, the reasons that are beyond our reason, that there's, the mind has reasons that reason cannot, and I'm totally messing up the quote. Reason cannot.
The mind has reasons that the mind can't get it. By the way,
yeah, something like that. So that's why he said that.
But
And,
yeah, sorry,
and that's why language has to, that's why we have to, we can't give up. So what the reason I mentioned that quote is because he told this person, like, don't give up, searching. That's part of, what Frankl wanted to tell people also, like, don't give up searching just because you're not finding it. and like I want to get it, I want to know, okay, how do I define this? And that to go back to Ian McGilchrist, that's like a left brain thing, that you have to find the definitions and you have to be exact and precise. Right brain says, no, I don't know everything, so that's okay.
Yeah. Interesting.
Sorry, but may I just ask the name of that book? What is the title?
Okay, so I'll write it here. It's a very formidable book to read. It's this 2 very thick volumes. His bibliography is like something like 200 pages just for the bibliography. But he quotes everybody in there, all the philosophers, all the poets and everything. And it's so rich. 1 second. Chat. Okay, do you see it?
Yes, thank you very much.
Matter with things. His first book, which I didn't read, is called The Master and Its Emissary. And that's a shorter book, but I didn't read that one. That was his first book. But he talks about, you know, of his experience in treating left brain injured and right brain injured people, and the differences between how they behave as a result of the different brains being injured, and what he learned from that, what he learned from seeing, you know, seeing the differences. He learned about how the two sides of the brain function. So one question that I brought up once in one of these meetings was whether the conscience is like the right brain, or would you say conscience? I still haven't got an answer to this yet, really, but or you say it's like the conscience is like both, is like putting together the two sides, because he says a lot in the book also throughout that what we need is a combination of the two, like need them to be working together, you know, and need right and left. It's not as if, oh, right is better, so we don't need the left. You know, we still need the left, but it has to be in service of something beyond, right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you're finding that Ian McGilchrist's left brain, right brain discussion, analysis, research is pertinent to what Frankel was saying in different words?
Yeah, I think it's very pertinent because what is his main point is that it depends on how we pay attention, what we pay attention to. So the left side hemisphere of the brain pays attention to small little details, and thinks it knows everything because it knows the detail that it's looking at, right? Whereas the right side looks at things holistically. And I think that Frankel was really trying to get us to look at things holistically, but you know, that holistic side is more intuitive, and you know, doesn't need exact evidence and proofs of things. It's just things that you can sense, right? And so there's a lot you can think about, and you don't have to read the book. You can listen to him on YouTube, and you know, and just think about it. I think there's so much there to think.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
You know, I'm thinking that Frankel kept trying to convince the world of logotherapy. It's very important to him, but he did it in a way that sounds to me very left brain. And what we're saying here, and I've heard it many times from Batya, and I see it myself, is a lot of the value that Frankel was bringing was right brain, if you put it in that paradigm.
Yes.
And that's why he had a lot of opposition in the evidence-based world of psychotherapy.
Right.
They don't like logotherapy very much there. And in the right brain world, there are lots of competition from many other modalities.
Right.
It kind of gets lost in the shuffle, I think.
Yeah, it's true. I think you're right. But I mean, it's everything I've said so far, but the obstacles and how you get over them by using them in the right way and by bringing something else in, right? So I think we need to see it as a challenge, that how do we use this in a good way, right? So I think we can use this challenge that logotherapy finds itself in by thinking, well, what do I have to offer? What kind of unique understanding do I have about this that can shed light on things?
Yeah. But I just want to say something. I have to go as well, but you know,
yeah, I think we'll finish this up.
it's a thought. I'm planting a seed here. I don't know if you want to go for it.
Okay.
But I think it would be fascinating to do an investigation about intuition and logotherapy.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know where it's going to go, but I have an intuition that it's a very interesting topic.
Yeah. Maybe the next time a student wants to do a project, I will suggest them do it on that.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I think we have a lot to learn there. And I think Franco was very intuitive, as is logotherapy.
Yeah. Okay,
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you,
thank
Batya.
you. Okay.
Bye, Margaret. Bye,
Bye.
Pan.